In May, we finally get to see what trouble Loki is getting himself into. With this story taking place in an alternate timeline, could this mean that the world surrounding Loki's story goes a whole new course, or will it converge with the original timeline at some point? Today we want to propose a recent theory that we saw and share our thoughts on Loki's timeline, rebirth, and possible death. Welcome watchers of the Marvel Multiverse. This is the voice of the Marvelous Wave. Let us observe all that occurs. So there's a new theory out there that Loki died in Thor the Dark World, and the Loki that existed after is the Loki that escaped with the Tesseract in the newly created alternate timeline. Currently, in MCU canon, the story is that Loki faked his death, creating a double to take his place so that he could appear dead, so he could secretly return to Asgard during Thor's absence. During this time, we know he posed as Odin, ruling Asgard as he saw fit, until Thor returned and revealed his treachery in Thor Ragnarok. But it has now been proposed that these may not be the same Lokis. With Loki stealing the Tesseract, escaping and changing his own timeline, he may have changed his fate entirely. But he also may have just set it on a slightly different course. The thought here is that the events of Loki take place between the first Avengers movie and Thor the Dark World. But here's where that theory really starts. As I said before, Loki in Thor Ragnarok is a completely different version from the one who died at the end of Thor the Dark World. This is because the original timeline Loki died after getting impaled by Curse. And it seems that this is not one of the projections of himself that he so often uses, as the copies of Loki are not tangible. And it also seems unlikely that this is a trick because just before his death, Curse was attacking Thor, and his magic hasn't shown the ability to create tangible threats, just illusions. Also, there would have been little to no time for Loki to use his magic to fake his death. And also, if he was just acting and changing his appearance to appear more dead, yet still got wounded, it does not explain how he could have survived such a terrible blow. Survived, healed, and snuck back to Asgard to take the throne from Odin, all while looking fairly healthy. For someone who got stabbed in the chest, this seems highly unlikely. And if somehow he did do this, even in Thor Ragnarok, there is no clear explanation that Loki can give as to how he survived. This makes this theory all the more likely. But even then, while thinking about this, there could be some things that punch holes in this theory. First off is the involvement of the Reality Stone. Perhaps Loki gained some control over it, or it boosted his powers to create a much more advanced copy, changing reality to trick Thor. But if he was truly stabbed, could it simply come down to a matter of anatomy? If you remember, Loki is neither human nor Asgardian. And we know from experiences in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that Asgardians have slightly different anatomy from humans, so why wouldn't frost giants have slightly different anatomy from both? Therefore, a stab to the chest may not be a mortal blow for his species. But even with these possible explanations, this theory would be interesting because it would help bring Loki's story full circle. We know that Loki in his own series will probably be an entirely new version, who has not experienced the struggles that brought him closer to his brother. But that doesn't mean eventually he could be the version that takes over for Loki in Thor the Dark World. And the events in Loki could be an integral part to why he is less of a bother and more of a help, even if it doesn't seem so in Thor Ragnarok. Perhaps in his upcoming show, the TVA, or Time Variance Authority, places him back in the main timeline and upon witnessing his doppelganger's death, takes the opportunity to pose as a guard and make it to Asgard. This would make the alternate Loki the one who helps in the events of Thor Ragnarok, but it also means that this could be why he isn't as evil and scheming as he is in the past movies, ultimately helping save the Asgardians and destroy Hela. Could it be that he experiences things in his own adventures that turn him into more of an anti-hero and less of a villain? But the thing here is, if this is the Loki from the alternate timeline returned to the original timeline, then Loki's death at the hands of Thanos is the last we see of him. If this is not the case, however, and Loki truly did trick Thor in Thor the Dark World, then could it possibly be that this is a whole new timeline for Loki and a whole new world? With the multiverse opening up, could it be possible that this is a whole new branch of the MCU that splits off and creates all new stories? This would be interesting to see, opening up possibilities equal to the alternate realities we will see in Marvel's What If series. With a whole new timeline and Loki in control of the Tesseract, what other realities could we see? Perhaps we will see Loki take control and become king of Asgard in his reality, whether it be through force or gaining it through his good deeds. Or perhaps it will take a much longer story that will return him to the MCU through Doctor Strange, as it has been rumored that Loki appears in the Multiverse of Madness. And with WandaVision seeming to set it up, could Loki also play a part in setting up the events that will happen in the multiverse? And in part, what confirms this theory is that it has recently been reported that when Captain America returned to stay with Peggy, he created an alternate timeline, in which he had to find a way to return to the original timeline to give Sam the shield. Again, this could be evidence that Loki returns to the timeline somehow as well. If this theory is true that Loki did die during Thor the Dark World, it would definitely make for an interesting story for the alternate timeline Loki. With Loki's popularity on the rise, anything that adds to his trickster ways can only make him more interesting. What do you think of this theory? And do you think that Loki's series will be the last we see of him? Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to assemble and join our team, and have a great